Okay. Hey guys, it's Melissa here. I'm in my truck and I am actually sweating again. Woo! I keep getting these hot flashes. Let me unroll something. So, I haven't done, let me see. Okay, so I haven't done, there we go. I'm just like turning this, hold on. Oh, I'll shut this off and save gas. So I haven't done, maybe I'll just take my blazer off. I haven't done a video in a little while. Maybe I'll keep it on. Of me talking. So it's been like, what, 4 days or something? So I had this like huge pimple. Seriously, it was huge. And I had to pop it. It's still there, but no biggie now. But it was huge. Anyways, so what do I want to talk about? I want to talk about a few things. So I had my Bible study last night and I shared my testimony. We had all signed up to share our testimony and how we came to know Christ. So I don't know that I've like shared like the full story, So when I was in one class, it was like, just do a 5-minute elevator pitch when you're speaking, because public speaking is tough for me. It's better now with this YouTube channel, but when I was a kid, I used to have to get up in front of class, like second and third grade, and my chin would wiggle. Seriously, I mean, I was so nervous, and then the kids would laugh at me, and so that made it worse, right? So public speaking had been a fear of mine for a while, and I used to be very camera shy, so it's getting better for me. But anyways, so last night I went into the Bible study, and they're like, Melissa, you're sharing your testimony tonight? And I'm like, I am. I am. I thought it was next week. And they're like, oh yeah, it's next week. We mixed it up with so-and-so who's not here. And I'm like, that's fine. I'll give my testimony if you want. Because I had kind of just started developing it in my head. And I didn't have it on paper or anything. But because I, know my testimony, it wasn't that hard to just talk about it. So I did talk about it. So my testimony, how I got saved. There is this song, and this is what I told them. There's this song called When They Ask for Your Testimony, What Do You Say? You tell them how much you love Jesus, basically. Your greatest love is Jesus. So I started off with that, and then, someone knew the song, and I had shared basically, just a little bit of my background, how my dad was a farm boy raised in the country in Deerfield. I didn't tell him Deerfield, but Deerfield, New Hampshire. So a lot of my life was country growing up in my formative years, and also city girl, country city girl I am. I'm very balanced where I can relate to a lot of people because of my background. Our home was like a train station, right? People were over constantly, or I was in school, or I was meeting new people constantly. So I have a lot of people skills because of that, because of my background, just a huge variety of different types of people, which gives me more ability to share the gospel with people because of my background. I shared a little bit about my background. My mom, city girl, brought up in the projects of Manchester, Rock Rimmon. Didn't say Rock Rimmon, but that's where. And just, I just talked about how when I had said last night, I am a mother of 6, and I lost one to abortion. And I had shared I wouldn't have been able to say that up until 2 years ago. And that was because of a post-abortive class where we really got in there. And, I always felt like I have 5 sons. That's who I am. I have 5 sons. But to give more weight to that child that I lost, and that is part of the huge denial of abortion. It's huge. It's so huge that you actually sweep it under the rug and you live a lie after that. That's how huge it is. And when you're healing, as I am, and I didn't share this, but they don't know that I'm still kind of healing from some stuff. it's tough. Unless you got the gospel, it's tough because what you lived before was not the truth. It wasn't the truth. And so even this week I was at a plasma center. I talked about that, and to go into more detail, what had bothered me this week was, it didn't just bother me, but it actually helped me, was I had this girl prick me. One of them I'm getting to know. I shared the gospel with her. But she's like, oh, I'm almost done my training and I can't wait to put a needle in you. It's just like, oh yeah, I can't wait too. But there was this new girl who was doing this, and she pricked my arm, and she's like, is that okay? And I'm like, she was really gentle. I'm like, yeah, that's fine. And she's like, do you need it pulled out a little? Let me know how you feel. And she kept checking on me, and I was fine. But thinking about the abortion, and this is how it is with the abortion. I've been thinking about this. God allowed it. He was there the whole time, and you will not be healed until God allows that too. He allows the healing for his reasons. So these 2 years, the healing has just been really quick, where like the last 30 years when I had my kids, I had to take care of them on very little, so I didn't have time to deal with this. So that was a slow process of like hearing the vacuum, the triggers, the panic attacks. That was a slow process, where this is just one thing after another of healing. Is just really fast for me lately, especially lately with the trauma class. So, I was kind of stuck in the first post-abortive class. I was kind of stuck in there. And then the second one was better, but this, that helped a lot. I got through a lot, but this trauma class is just boom, it's just all coming. So I was thinking about how I felt forced into my abortion, and I was on so many levels. And I am, well, wait a minute. Yeah. So when I was at the plasma center, I was thinking like, okay, when you had something put in you, this is my teen perspective, something was put in me. That's when the truth started, or when I started realizing kind of like, okay, something's wrong here. What's going on? What are they doing? Kind of thing. And, the doctor was pretty cold with that. And then when I was on the table, that was pretty, that was pretty forced. That was pretty, I couldn't have said, I don't feel I could have said no, like I changed my mind. Like when you give plasma, you can change your mind. But I do remember the doctor was pretty mean, and I think it's because he was having trouble probably removing the baby. I think he, I think something was going on down there where, I was in a lot of pain, and I think he was just really making sure he could get everything, and the nurse was like, it's going to be okay. And I just really did not feel a gentleness at all. So, along these lines, so I shared my testimony about how my mother barged in on me in the bathroom, and she's like, when did you have your last period? And how rough my mother was. So many times she was just rough with me. And I was like, I don't know. We didn't keep track of it. When I had my first period, I thought I was hurt. And then I just heard, oh no, kind of joking, no, that's your friend. So there wasn't a lot there with talking about sex or, my period or anything. So, being pregnant, I didn't even, even though I graduated early, I didn't have the basics down of, how everything works. And so, so I had shared that, and my mother saying, don't tell me you're pregnant, when I came out of the bathroom into the kitchen, and how I froze like a deer in headlights. And so I shared that. I shared about how that was swept under the rug. It was just gym the next day, walk home, betrayed by my father, telling my brother to keep his mouth shut. Your sister just had an abortion, that type of thing. And then how I got saved is about 5 years after that. When I was married, I was pregnant with my firstborn son, and how I felt him kick. And that kick sent me flying. That kick, I had gone to a pregnancy center for a free pregnancy test. Just looked in the phone book. That's why I went. I felt like, why should I pay for a pregnancy test? And so I just knew, there were resources. I've always been pretty resourceful. And so I just got a pregnancy test from there. And like the second time I went back for a car seat, and I had blurted out something about an abortion. I had only told my husband when we were friends and another friend about the abortion, and it didn't really like faze me, right? So then with the pregnancy, I think this is why I blurted it out to the pregnancy center, because it started affecting me because I was pregnant now. And she had said God forgives as far as the east to the west. And I took all the blame. For some reason, I took it all. And someone in a pro-life pregnancy center had said to me, wait a minute, you took all the blame and then you didn't? And I'm like, yeah, I don't understand why. And so now, even giving my testimony last night, I could understand it a little bit more. It was a situation where the truth was hitting, that I was now understanding what an abortion was. And so I was now processing that. And there was something definitely wrong, right? That it was wrong. The truth coming in was very difficult. And somehow I took the blame, which was a post-traumatic stress symptom. And I was suicidal. I didn't commit suicide, but I felt like it because the truth was so hard to take, that this was indeed a child. And so that was really hard to take. And then, I was just wrestling with, God, she gave me that verse. She did not know, what the situation was and how everything happened. But I'm like, God forgives. And I knew that the whole situation was wrong, but I took it personal. And I was wrestling with God forgiving me. And then shortly after, I was invited to church. But before that happened, I was on the couch and I was laying there pregnant, and I felt totally worthless. And that was a feeling I had never had before in my life. There was no excuses. There was no justifying. There was no way to run to anything to save me from what I was feeling except forgiveness, for accepting God's forgiveness and realizing if God says he forgives, who am I to argue? He's God and I'm nothing. So a lot of pride was broken right there, where before, being a cheerleader, soccer, basketball, dance, everything popular, I kind of had my own righteousness and didn't feel I needed God's righteousness. So I kind of felt like I was a pretty good person until you see what sin is, right? And you could justify just about everything, right? But that's a pretty big one. You can't really get away with that one. So seeing the sin, and me taking it on myself was pretty hard, because I didn't have any resources to help me with that. I didn't have any way to process that truth hitting me, except to blame myself and to take the whole guilt of it all, false guilt too. And that's something that was in my family anyway. So then shortly after, I shared how my husband's grandmother invited me to church, and I'm like, I'm not religious, don't think so. And she was like, well, what religion are you going to teach Alex, and my son? And I'm like, no idea. So then I was thinking about it, and I knew deep down that I wanted better for him. I knew that something was wrong with my family dynamics in some way. Something was wrong, and I wanted better for him. So I decided to go to church. And first time, she's like, oh, I don't really like this church. They're not really friendly. She's dead now, but anyways, she's like, they're not really friendly. And I had no expectations of church. And I was just like, well, I'm fine with it. So I went up to church with my son in a stroller walked up the hill to this tiny church in New Hampshire and Pennacook and got saved. And I heard the gospel is what happened. Somebody was filling in for some pastor, and he was sharing the gospel. And I had shared last night that I understood it. My eyes were open. I cannot describe how it was. It was just something as a little girl. I had shared when I was a little girl, I had an Aunt Phyllis who was a Sunday school teacher, and she would bring my brother and I to church, and after church she would have these posters and talk to us about Jesus. And I fell in love with the guy who could walk on water as a little girl. Oh, phone call. So I fell in love with him. And then from there, my Uncle John died, so we didn't go to church anymore. And it just, we just were not raised really to believe in a God, except my family was Catholic. I didn't get into that. But anyways, so I came to know, I just respect